Welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners meeting on January 9th, 2024. For issues and updates, Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. We will begin today with consent agenda requests for the Board of County Commissioners. First, Juvenile Department, Item 1, approval of a revised amendment for a grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Education for Juvenile Crime Prevention Services. The amendment value is $495,377. For 2 years, total grant value is increased to $970,625 for 4 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved. Christina McMahon, Director of Juvenile Department. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith. Good morning, Commissioners. Happy New Year. I haven't seen you since last year. Thought I'd use my favorite dad joke.
And Happy New Year to you, too.
Thank you. I'm here to ask you to approve this revised amendment. If this seems like a deja vu moment for you, it is for me too. After I was here in November asking you to approve the original document, ODE contacted us and said that they had made a mistake and they hadn't put the right language in, which is why we're here today. They need a new document signed with the correct language. It doesn't have any practical effect on us, and we're not getting a giant windfall of extra money. So just wanted to explain the backstory of why we're here so soon, 6 weeks later.
Okay, do commissioners have any questions or comments on this? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Finance Department, Item 1, approval of Amendment Number 1 to a contract with Cintas Corporation for countywide uniform services. The amendment value not to exceed $800,000 over 4 years. Total agreement value not to exceed $1,248,200 for 6 years. Funding is through department cost allocations, which does include a small portion of budgeted county general funds and other fees and charges. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, and Ryan Rice, Procurement Manager. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Yes, we're here for an extension. This is amendment to a 2-year contract currently with Cintas. This is part of a cooperative agreement that we have for the western states, so that we wanted to lock in on the pricing again. You'll see that it is delayed from the closing of October of last year, and now we're amending this to go 4 more years. It's because we are waiting for this cooperative to be renewed so we could tag on to that. And so this is an additional $800, which is approximately $400 for each 2-year period. And we work with 4 different departments. We work with Wes, Fleet, DTD, and Facilities for uniforms and laundry of those.
Interesting. Okay, this is not Sheriff's Department.
Correct. This is just
Questions? Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, this service to employees for uniform laundering, this is, as I was discussing with the county administrator, part of our union agreements, correct? This is part of this. We need to do this in accordance with our union agreements.
For some of it, yes. You say exactly what this is for. What does this cover? What services?
The uniforms for the said departments and the laundry services of those uniforms. So
Please,
yes.
you need to pull the microphone closer.
Oh.
Please introduce yourself, and can you repeat that again?
Yes, apologies. Ryan Rice, Clackamas County Procurement Manager. And yes, this is for the uniform services and the laundry services of those said departments and the requirement they need to wear those uniforms to represent.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, there's a whole list of stuff here. There's lab coats, there's pants, there's shirts, there's mops, there's buckets, I don't know what.
Yeah, this
so
is
whatever is required, I'm sure this is not anything that's excessive.
Correct.
Any other questions? See no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Tourism, Item 1, approval of a professional services contract with Travel Portland to implement portions of the Regional Tourism Plan. Contract value is $158,457 for 1 year. Funding is through Travel Portland. No county general funds are involved. Samara Phelps, Executive Director of the Tourism Mount Hood Territory. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Good morning. Samara Phelps, Clackamas County Tourism Director. And this contract is a 1-year contract. It is with Travel Portland, but uses state transient lodging tax to fund it. Our allocation this year for this program is $158,457. While this is a new agreement, we have been doing work in this fashion with Travel Portland through the RCTP program, which is the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program, for many years. The tactics for this year that this will fund, specifically for us here in Clackamas County, are representation at trade shows, advertising to drive direct bookings to our hotels, as well as inclusion in large-scale public relations for the region. And it up-levels existing programs. There is no additional new programs to Clackamas County with this.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Scholl?
Do you have a feel for the quantifiable effects that the county's getting from this program?
Yes, so we get, that would be the returns on the advertising spend, which we get $20 to $100 per every dollar that's invested in return on those advertising dollars. The public relations would be in reach, and the large-scale reach, like we did a national campaign or a national program, which was Adventure Cities last year, so it's national reach for that program. So those are the ways in which we quantify that value to Clackamas County.
Seeing no objections, thank you.
Great.
Item 2, approval of a professional services contract with Travel Oregon to serve as the Regional Destination Management Organization. Contract value is $400,000 for 1 year. Funding is through Travel Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Great. So this program is a contract directly with Travel Oregon to receive the Mount Hood region funds and serve as their regional destination management organization for an area that includes our mountain communities in Clackamas County, parts of Wasco County, all of Hood River, and the West Gorge, so Troutdale and the Columbia River Gorge corridor. We do this program entirely funded through the Travel Oregon contract, which they upped from $300,000 last year to $400,000 this year for the allocation of this program.
We are paying them or they're paying us?
Nope, they're paying us $400,000,
Okay,
correct.
Got it. It's a little bit confusing. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, disaster management. Item 1, approval of a grant agreement with the State of Oregon for the fiscal year 2023 Emergency Management Performance Grant. Agreement value is $249,906 for 1 year. Funding is through Federal Emergency Management Performance Grant and matching funds of $124,953 in budgeted county general funds. Daniel Nybauer, Disaster Management Director. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. This is a approval for a grant agreement that will bring in $124,953 of FEMA Emergency Management Performance Grant funds that we'll use for staff costs, of which we have a budgeted cost match of $124,953.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 2, approval to apply for an Urban Area Security Initiative fiscal year 2024 grant funds. Anticipated grant value is $792,223. Funding through the Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Program. No county general funds are involved.
This is approval to apply for this grant. It's a regional grant in which we work with our regional partners to put in an application. We're putting in 3 different projects. One through disaster management for the Citizen Corps, which will be supplying our amateur radio folks, our Citizen Corps groups throughout the county, and our Neighborhood Watch with different supplies that they have requested, and that amount is $41,150. Also partnering with elections for some security enhancements for various things within their office. That's $278,030. And finally, with the Sheriff's Office for a upgraded high-definition thermal camera and monitor to improve real-time data for on the ground, and that is $473,043. And that all of those will be evaluated regionally, and then a final grant application will go into FEMA.
So who is the grantor on this? It's not clear in the document. Who would be giving us the grant should we be awarded?
It's ultimately FEMA dollars, and it'll come through the City of Portland is the fiscal agent for the region. So we'll do that.
National.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're federal dollars.
Did you run this by the Emergency Preparedness Council since it involves volunteer efforts and ham radio?
They're aware that we put in for these
Okay,
grants.
have they know exactly what this document is? Was it sent to their emails?
No,
Would you please do that
yes.
and explain exactly what it does so they can feel that they're a part of it and not left out?
Certainly.
Any questions or comments?
I have one question.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yeah, good morning, Daniel.
Good morning.
On the air support unit equipment, 473K, you said it was thermal monitor. Is that infrared device that's going to be put on the aircraft?
Yeah, there's currently the FLIR, and I apologize, I don't know the acronym, but it is an infrared camera.
Forward-looking infrared radar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's currently one on there. This will be an upgrade. I believe that unit, I may have the years wrong, but it's between 8 and 10 years old, and this will be a much higher definition and give us better situational awareness of what's going on the ground.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions? See no objections, thank you.
Next, Transportation and Development, item 1, approval of a supplemental project agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for the Bull Run River Bridge project. Total agreement value is $2 million. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Transportation, Local Bridge Program, and $205,400 in county road funds. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Not sure what else to, Chair Smith, Commissioners, good morning. Not sure what else to add to that. You are familiar with this. Essentially, DTD was successful in working with the Oregon Department of Transportation to get funding for this design work through that local bridge project. What I also want to inform you is if you look on page 2, we are also working proactively to fully fund the remainder of the project through the state share for the next phase of funding for bridges and grants.
Through
Bull
the
Run.
state what, Sheriff?
So basically, if you look at, with understand the design, basically this is design and right-of-way for this work right here, okay? And essentially, and those pieces of that project are funded. We've applied for the construction phase through this local bridge program solicitation, and that window runs from 2027 to 2030. And this is how this normal flow of projects work. The state approves it for the design phase, and then next is a discussion around the funding phase. We can't affirm to you we're going to get those monies, but we are applying for that window of those funds from 2027 to 2030 through the local bridge program solicitation project process through Oregon Department of Transportation.
So the entire bridge project is 18 million?
Correct.
Okay. Does this 2 million take off any of the 18 million, or is this in addition to?
The 18 is the construction cost, but I wouldn't say anything is going to come off that number, in all honesty.
This
With
bridge keeps getting more expensive. The
Right.
more money we find, the more expensive it gets.
every single thing we're touching. Yep.
So how much money do we have set aside to rebuild this bridge?
Right now, this is a commitment of $204,500 of road fund. I don't believe it, confirmed with Mike through our budget. We haven't specifically set aside additional funding. We will be prepared to meet any match that we get from a grant. We have funds set aside for that, but we do not have funds to the tune of $18 million to invest in that specific area.
And do we still have a grant application in with the federal government again? We had a brick grant.
Yes. Yes, we do. I wanted to confirm that with our PGA staff, but yes, we do.
I mean, we've applied many, many times, and we talk about this a lot.
Correct.
We sound like a broken record on this.
And we continue to try to find the right program to apply for, and
Yeah.
Yep, no deed goes unpunished.
Commissioner West?
Yeah, you asked one of my questions, so I won't ask that one. One of in the packet, and you just mentioned, we talk about the timeline. I may not fully understand this, which is fine, but does this 2027 to 2030, that's a long ways out. Does that, and we're pushing the project on this failing bridge that many more years forward is a concern?
Yes.
Am I wrong in my understanding of what's
no.
happening here? So we're waiting on additional state funding on a failed bridge with very significant health and safety issues attached to it potentially. And that's a long time.
It is, and I guess I want to make sure, and Mike's probably best suited, he does a lot of work with the state of Oregon and this local bridge process. We have a lot of faith in this process because it is very data-driven. around needs and necessities. The nuance of it is that there are funding windows and sessions. And so we have strategically and through great cooperation with the state of Oregon, positioned this bridge for this grant to get the design and right-of-way work underway. And then the discussion is, that's my phone in the back beeping right now, Mike correcting me probably. Then fundamentally taking and positioning this project for possible hopeful future funding through this next cycle. We can't fast track their cycle of funding, but this is basically a possibility for funding for this bridge during that window of time. Doesn't mean we're not looking for other funding and other options to get it sooner, but right now, through this local bridge selection process, this is the process that we currently is availed to us.
My next question is a little maybe confused, but last time you and Mike were before us, I thought this bridge was like closer to $14,000. 14 million? 14,000 would be a miracle. $14 million, and now today it's 18, and that's like 2 months ago we talked to you about this or so. Like, it was just recently. What's happening where, like, by the millions, this thing just keeps escalating?
I need to get that information to you. I asked the same question. I'm like, how the heck do we go from 14 to $18 million? And what happened there? 18 is our most.
And that was a lot. 14 was a lot.
Yeah, 14 is a lot. 18 is a lot.
Yeah.
And so fundamentally, the concern is to get the most accurate data that we have at the time we put these grants in, just to get the estimate of the cost. That is our current assessment of what that cost is to construct that project. There are a variety of different factors that go into that. I mean, it could be steel prices, escalation cost of workmen, cost of living increases for the workforce. There's a variety of different cost influences that factor into that.
Where are we at with our legislative delegation in DC to help move this along? And where, I think that's essential. I've always wondered why Senator Merkley or Ron Wyden, where they're at with this, or the congressional member delegation, and then is there cost savings with other cities that share in this infrastructure need, or is this just all in Clackamas County as it goes up by the $4 million every few months?
You want to the legislative thing?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Trent Wilson, Public and Government Affairs. Our federal delegation is incredibly supportive of this project. It is a small project, and so it's challenging for it to compete with projects in similar districts that have more people, have more trips, have more traffic, and so on. But every time that we submit, for every application that we submit for, our entire delegation provides support letters for this project, even beyond the districts that they represent. And so even for Bull Run, that would be Congressman Blumenauer's district, we still get support letters from what had formerly been Congressman Schrader and now Chavez DeRemer, Congresswoman Bonamici. Also submit support letters for this. Our delegation understands the need for this project because they are all impacted by the water program that supports the rest of those districts too. So we have the delegation support. It's just a challenging project because of where it is and how small it is.
Okay, thank you.
In answer to your question, Commissioner West, Martha Schrader and I many times have talked to Senators Wyden and Merkley about the importance of this project over the years, and thank you for asking that. It's important to get it on the record. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, thank you. I appreciate your work on this and encourage you to keep pressing on this bridge. This bridge, to the folks that live in the Bull Run area, is a matter of not just load limitations, it's a safety issue, it's a fire department response issue, it's a convenience issue. Instead of going from Sandy to the bridge to Bull Run, they have to go from Sandy to Gresham to Corbett to the Bull Run and back around. So this is really, although the bridge might serve a relatively few number of people in one of the remote corners of our county, it is a critical bridge to the people who live out that way. And I appreciate both of your work on pushing this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing no.
Just a comment that, let's not forget that Portland Water benefits from this bridge. And also, was it Weyerhaeuser? Also uses the bridge extensively, so there's a lot of private interest or utility type or so forth interest in this.
Thank you. Seeing no objections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2, approval of a public improvement contract with Premier Property Development for the Stone Creek Golf Club Pond Repair Project. Total value is $195,000. Funding is through Stone Creek Golf Club Course Funding is through Stone Creek Golf Club course revenue. No county general funds are involved.
So there's a lot of discussion in here about this contract and the fact that it's updating culverts, catch basins, overflow outlets, gate valves, increases water conservation. At its core, it is a safety project. We have rodents that are out in that particular area. They're undermining the bank of these ponds, and they are creating, Nutria are creating issues with safety when folks walk around the perimeter of these ponds. That, in addition, that activity from our furry friends has created issue with those ponds retaining water, and there's a necessity and a desire to retain that water, because the more water we retain within those ponds reduces costs for irrigation for that particular property, okay? We've gone out for contract through the ORS and LCRB rules, working collaboratively with procurement. After we received 6 bids, after review of the bids, Premier Property was deemed to be the lowest responsive bidder. And actually, the bid that we received was much less than we thought it was going to be. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner West?
So nutria are an invasive species from Argentina. They're brought here in the turn of the century for the fur trade, and now they just create havoc in agricultural lands, waterways, and outcompete natural species. They have quite nice fur, but they look like the rodents of unusual size from like I see that from the Princess Bride. And they're actually kind of fun to hunt. But are we going to mitigate that are we going to go in there and deal with the pests and so they're not there? I know that that attracts them too, but we're going to do to make sure they can't
To the scope and ability that we can, and then this is an armoring, so it will armor the perimeter of that pond, so they will no longer be able to perform that action and undermine the bank areas.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No wonder it's so expensive, right?
I'd love the fact that we got the Princess Bride on the record for the Board of County Commissioners.
By the way, for the younger generation, it's an awesome film. Go watch it.
Yes,
This pond is used for irrigating the golf course as well,
that's correct.
so it catches rain.
Yes.
Is it spring-fed?
I think so, but I have to confirm that for you. I believe so.
you.
Yep.
Seeing no further questions or objections,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All of these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting for your final approval. Next, board appointment for Sunrise Community Visioning Project Steering Committee. There's a memo in your packet. This is a revisit from last week. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I am here again to have a discussion with the Board of County Commissioners about the interest in assigning or appointing a member of our commission to participate in the Sunrise Community Visioning Project Steering Committee. Just again, for the sake of the public that's watching today that might not have watched last week, essentially this is an advisory committee or a steering committee comprised of about 20 individuals from various areas of expertise. These meetings, there'll be about 8 meetings, give or take, that'll run through now through March of 2025. They are directly associated with the effort that we have to re-envision and assess that entire Sunrise corridor to facilitate future construction of the next phase of the Sunrise project. The board is very familiar with that project, so I'll save that description, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
questions or comments? Commissioner Shaw?
For the people who are listening, Mr. Johnson, this Community Visioning Project Steering Committee will deal with the next phase of the Sunrise Gateway corridor from 122nd to 172nd, correct?
Correct. That's correct. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Gary, do we need a motion?
Motion to
I'll
appoint a
entertain
commissioner.
motion.
I expressed my interest in filling that position, but it would be awkward for me to make the motion, but I'll second it.
Commissioner Shaw?
I move to appoint Commissioner Paul Savas to the Sunrise Community Visioning Project Steering Committee.
I'll second.
Commissioner Shaw has made a motion to appoint Commissioner Savas to the Sunrise Community Visioning Project, and Commissioner West has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, take the poll.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Didn't see your
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schull.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Commissioner Schrader. I did not see your light on.
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment about this, and that is that any commissioner can go to the meetings with Commissioner Savas as long as there's not a quorum. So we can all keep track of it in a way where we can have influence. And I've done that many times before. I didn't necessarily have to be the point person, but I did want to be involved, and I did want to. So I would encourage any one of us, we just need to make sure that as you do that work, Paul, that there's not a quorum present, and you know, and we'll promise not to meddle too much.
And please don't hesitate to reach out to staff, myself included. If
Okay.
you have questions about schedules or when meetings are going to occur regarding this project, we'd be glad to. And there's a website available on your materials as well that will provide all that information.
We all have an opportunity to.
Commissioner West?
Yeah, Commissioner Savas, thank you for stepping up. This is really great that we're having the opportunity to further advance what we have known has been something that needed to move forward for a very long time in this county. For the public's knowledge, Commissioner Savas also chairs C4. I have the opportunity to be the other commissioner as part of that group, but this is a good nexus with C4 too. And your knowledge, we're lucky to have you in Clackamas County with your knowledge on transportation, so thank you for continuing to serve that way. Maybe I'll attend a couple meetings too, just so I can stay up to speed with how things are going, especially being on C4 with you. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for stepping up.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I appreciate the board's confidence in me for this appointment, and I just want to amplify what Mr. Johnson just stated, that the staff have been really, really good about answering questions and responding to questions from the public. But in this case, I'm really speaking about ourselves, the commission. So please reach out. I got tremendous confidence in staff that they're going to be very engaging, and they're going to want us on board. I'm going to expect that from time to time there will be some inquiries from the public, and they may know Commissioner Schrader or Commissioner Smith better than they know me. So I'm sure there's going to be some outreach, and I know staff, got confidence staff will help, resolve those questions or interest or whatnot in this project. But this is more the beginning than in the end. I don't know how we got, this is about a 3-year project, 2-year project, about 2.5 years?
Well, we're hopeful that it's probably going to wrap up. We're thinking March of 2025.
Okay.
That's when we're kind of hopeful for. But, these projects, they get big, they get detailed. Again, we try to control any kind of scope creep or time delays. That's kind of our target right now.
Yep. I have been, I didn't really talk about it last week, but I have been giving tours with staff of the Sunrise Corridor and the 205 corridor and so forth. And so constantly engaged in this corridor, and there's so much overlap, I think it just makes sense. I think it's a kind of a fit. So again, I appreciate your confidence on this.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much.
Gary, what's next?
Next legislative update, Oak Lodge Water Services legislative requests. There's a memo in your packet, and presenting will be Tonya Holowetsky, Deputy Interim Director of Public and Government Affairs, Trent Wilson, Interim Government Affairs Manager. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. We're here to seek your guidance on a request we received, Wes and Clackamas County received from Oak Lodge Water Services to support their legislative effort to obtain $5 million in state funding to contribute to a $110 million capital improvement project. No funds are being requested of Wes or Clackamas County, and supporting the request will not interfere with any county priorities. Oak Lodge Water Services provides water services for nearly 29,000 ratepayers spanning from Milwaukee to Gladstone. And the vast majority of the project funding that they're seeking to obtain, of the total project, will be financed through ratepayer funds. The state funding will help offset the financial impact on vulnerable ratepayers. Their success will reflect well on West and Clackamas County. Legislative support for water treatment facilities, especially for regulatory improvements, generate much-needed awareness of the cost of infrastructure as well as the impact of state and federal regulations. Also, this will be a priority request for legislators who share a district with Oak Lodge Water Services. So with all of this in mind, PGA, in partnership with WES, recommends Clackamas County support this request, and as I said, we are seeking your guidance on this.
I have a couple questions. Have legislators been involved in this in Clackamas County, and are they aware of this?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith, for that question. Representatives Hartman and Gamba this is a priority project for them. They're the ones submitting a capital improvement request for these projects. So they're aware of the project, and Senators Meek and Taylor, who also share that district and share the services of Oak Lodge, are also aware of this.
Because without that, it probably wouldn't go anywhere.
Correct.
Now, there's $5 million you said, is it like a set-aside for low-income people when rates go up to finance the improvements? Is that what I heard?
My understanding of this project is that they have a capital improvement plan. It gets around $110 million. This is $5 million just to contribute to this particular regulatory issue. I don't know the details of.
But Tanya, you said something about low income.
Yeah, I mean, that's what our understanding is, that they're hoping that the state funding they receive, that $5 million, will help offset the financial impact, but how that's getting organized.
Well, $5 million to set off $110 million isn't a lot. It's not going to make a dollar's difference in a monthly payment. My specific question is this $5 million going to be put in the whole pot of $110 million? If it is, I mean, I don't have a preference. I'm trying to understand. Okay, or is this $5 million set aside for low-income people to help them, that mitigates their monthly payment when rates go up?
We can ask that question of Oak Lodge.
Okay, because you made reference to that in the materials today. Thank you. Commissioner Savas, I believe you were next.
Yeah, I have a few questions. First of all, do you have any other supporting documentation that you were provided?
No, they offered us a draft letter that we could submit to the Ways and Means Committee. We would do it a little different because this is not a Clackamas County priority. This is something that we want to support them going for their request, and they're a partner of Clackamas County. So their letter that they offered to us had much of this information in it. We don't have a lot of details as specific to their capital improvements plan or this project specifically. We do know that this project is a regulatory requirement for them to meet compliance with DEQ. That's about the extent of our knowledge right now.
Okay, I'm one of those 29,000 ratepayers in Oak Lodge, and this summer, there was a meeting in which I attended not as a commissioner, but as a ratepayer. And what was under consideration was a $25, not percent, but $25 monthly increase in the rates.
Wow.
For a capital improvement program. And as I drilled down, and being a former member of the Oak Lodge boards that made up what is now Oak Lodge Water Services, I was a little bit stunned by this. And what was described to me as the wastewater treatment plant element was much lower than 110,000 that was expressed in the summer. So yeah, it was a lot less than 110 million. So now I'm learning it's 110 million, which is at least 45 million more than I thought it was, or maybe I heard that wrong. But again, that's the reason for my question is, number one, this comes as a surprise. Number two, that's why I asked for this supporting documentation. And I'd like to better understand that. I think that if I put my county commissioner hat on here, I'm concerned about if there's what went awry. And as I see that there'll be more double-digit, if I'm reading this correctly, there'll be more double-digit rate increases. I think we should at least better understand what's gone wrong.
Commissioner, I apologize if this is either mistyped here. The letter that they shared with us does say capital improvements, $110 million in necessary capital improvements. And what I wrote here was capital improvements project. So that could be an error on my part within your memo, that this is maybe more their improvements plan versus the amount of the project specifically. I can seek that clarification, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. Does Greg Geist know any more about this project since you're ahead of West? Would you like to come up and give it a stab on Commissioner's
Yeah, well, as he's coming up, I just want to reply to Trent's statement. I would like to get clarity, but typically, I thought when the state got behind a project, it was a project. It was not a series of dissimilar projects, all related to the same agency. So I'd like to know which one it is.
Go ahead, Greg.
Morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Greg Geist, West Director. My understanding is that their capital improvement plan, I don't know if that's a 5-year, 6-year, is approximately $110 million. Part of that is their drinking water, part of that is their collections, part of that is refurbishment and upgrades of their treatment facility. My understanding is that the particular regulatory project is approximately $12 million, and that's something that DEQ is requiring them to do. It's called tertiary treatment. It's a filtration before they discharge out to the river. And the $5 million, because that is a state regulatory requirement, they're asking the state to help subsidize that particular project. How they apportion those funds to benefit lower income people and how they would structure, we don't know. We did not get that information.
Other commissioners in the queue, are you finished, Paul?
Yeah, I'm just going to be, I'll
Yeah, I
be
know.
inquiring.
So what
I'm
the
gonna be inquiring
request
about
is
this.
that we give them support to ask for a grant from the legislature. We are not approving this project whatsoever. It's not in our purview, I don't believe, but boy, this is something. Commissioner West.
So please clarify, it's not for low-income ratepayers, it's for infrastructure improvement with the water discharged in rivers?
It's to help offset the capital costs of the regulatory projects that are being mandated by the state. And they're saying in their letter, and again, I'm just taking their letter at face value, that they're going to use those funds to help reduce the rate increases for maybe all of their customers, or maybe they're going to have a program that focuses rate relief on low-income ratepayers within the district. I don't know the details of that.
One question on that. Who is the determining body on how certain reductions are allocated?
They have a board.
They have a board, a special district board, correct?
Independently elected.
Independently elected.
Yes.
What is, beyond that these ratepayers live in the borders of Clackamas County, what is the nexus to the county?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Beyond that these ratepayers live in Clackamas County, what is the real nexus to Clackamas County?
Well, I can speak for Wes. For me, when the state steps in and requires DEQ, requires a significant capital investment because of increasingly stringent regulations, I think it's fair that they have some skin in the game.
They have some what?
Some skin in the game. We are going to be facing DEQ future regulatory requirements. Historically, there's no disincentive for the folks at DEQ to put pretty onerous regulatory requirements on these types of permits for what I think are very limited improvements in water quality.
Is Wes involved at all in this process of capital development, or does Wes play a role in this?
Not for Oak Lodge, no.
Not for Oak Lodge, and it's not a county priority at all right now. And there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, there's commissioners are in the queue. We do not have to approve this today. I think we need to bring it back for more information. There's 3 other commissioners in the queue. Again, I don't know why we have to do this. Why can't Oak Lodge Water District just go to the legislature and keep us out of it? That's what, Greg, are you somehow sponsoring them? Is
No,
Wes?
no.
So why are you involved?
Well, they're a peer agency within the county. I'm sympathetic to their position with respect to the regulatory burden that they're going to be suffering, and it could be us next. And again, I'm speaking for Wes.
Okay, we have 3 commissioners in the queue. Gentlemen, and Tanya, please stay here. Pull up a chair. Commissioner Scholl.
The Oregon State Department of Environmental Quality, this is not the first time that they have required action on the part of cities to make modifications to their drinking water or sewage outflow without any kind of funds that follow the unfunded mandate. I have a real concern about what the Oregon State DEQ is doing to the ratepayer. And for example, Portland Water Bureau with their Bull Run facility, beautiful water, they pushed back against the Oregon State Department of Environmental Quality and said, look, the filtration plant that you want Portland Water Bureau to build, very expensive. The positive effect of building that compared to what we already have in the way of clean water is very, very small, but comes with a huge price. And the price now for the Portland Water Bureau filtration plant scheduled to be built just across the border from Cottrell is pushing $2 billion. And the concern is that once the first shovel goes in the ground, the rates paid for water by ratepayers from Cottrell all the way to the city of Tualatin, city of Portland, and a lot of different small utilities in between is going to go up fourfold. So this is just another example of what is a unreasonably high standard of water, sewer standards being imposed by DEQ on our cities. I don't know what we can do about it today. I do support your Oak Lodge Water Services request for $5 million. So I can support that today. But we need to keep our eye on this.
I agree. The recent issue was with the city of Sandy. They're also under a regulatory burden to build a new treatment facility, which they need to do. But they also, they applied for and got funding in the previous legislative session, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 million. So where these things happen, I'm a proponent for asking for some money from the state.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Trent, do you have a comment you want to make?
Yes, please, thank you. Just from the legislative perspective, because we'll certainly defer to Greg on the technical side of things, I would encourage you to think about this as a partner agency who's applying for a grant and seeking a support letter, much in the same way that we would ask for support letters when we apply for grants.
Ask who?
Oak Lodge is asking us for their support, for our support as they go and pursue this funding from the state. Much like how we do that when we also apply for grants, we also reach out to our partners and say, hey, can you support us in this request? At a legislative level, it's really that straightforward, but certainly we hear that there are technical questions that you would like us to answer and bring back to you before maybe you're comfortable saying yes or no to this particular one. That we're going to get a lot of these in the next 2 months, and so trying to get ahead of some of these requests in advance. It's good to hear your questions today, and we can, to try to think about those in advance before we bring future ones before the legislative session. But at a minimum, this is just a support request from a partner. If it's not a priority for us, we can be quiet on it, or we can bring back more details.
Well, that may be a request. However, there are overriding questions on this. For instance, staff time. Trent, are you going to go down and are you going to lobby for this? Are you going to lobby for this? So
Nope.
then why do they need our support? That's what I don't understand. Okay, Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to make it perfectly clear that my questions are not in any way probably going to change my desire to see the board approve this on behalf of the ever-changing demographics of the 29,000 people who live in there, which is it's becoming lower and lower income as time goes on. And so I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for the ratepayers in this area. But I do think that our support would help. However, I also expect to be faced questions about this. I think we need to be able to straight face our legislators and say, we stand by this because this is what it is, and we understand what it is. And right now, it's vague, and it's not consistent with at least what I heard 6 months ago. So I think it needs to be more crystal clear, and I don't want to pass that burden on to our staff here, but it is somewhat, obviously, a little bit of a problem here today, not a big one, but I'm hoping, whether it's this week or next week, whatever the comfort of the board is, that we do approve this. But I think some more further information of exactly what the situation is. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that we spent over $60 million, Oak Lodge, in rehabilitating the wastewater treatment plant to be ahead of the game, as well as establish a capital improvement program that, if it was implemented, would have prevented, a higher cost because of deferred maintenance. Now, I'm not sure what got deferred here or what went wrong, but this was not anticipated when I was on the boards.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I would just add, as far as the regulatory requirement for what we call tertiary treatment, that came relatively recently in the last year or two when they were reissued. The permits that cover these facilities are 5-year terms. They're often extended because the state doesn't keep up with them. But they were recently issued a new permit that had this new regulatory requirement, and that's what they're responding to with this ask. And it's in the context of a much larger multi-year capital improvement plan.
Right, and maybe Trent's correct, and maybe it was misworded here, but $12 million is a lot different than $110 million.
Well, I was going to say that, Paul. I mean, this report is confusing to me. Is the $5 million going to offset the $12 million, or is the $5 million going to offset $110 million? That needs to be made clear. Also, in the same paragraph, it says state funding of $5 million will help offset the financial impact on vulnerable ratepayers. You could say all ratepayers are vulnerable. Vulnerable is not a word that I want to see used here. I want a definition of what exactly that means. I mean, if you're going to raise rates, 27%, that was last year, and then you're looking at another, you could easily, rates are going to double in a few years' time. You could say everybody out there is vulnerable.
Thank you very much for this feedback. We can get these questions answered and come back to you at a future time. I'm currently planning 2 weeks from now to come back with a list of similar state requests that we would like to get ahead of before the session begins, and we can have these answers at that time.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, they are their own special district, and they have their own elected board. We really don't have any auspice, any direct control. I think Ben alluded to that. Paul alluded to that. I know that this was their choice to have their own district. I know back in the day, we had approached the area to be part of Water and Environment Services with the notion that the scale of the requirements as we moved forward in terms of, water management would tend to be, as Commissioner Shull pointed out, far more stringent in the future, and that would be an added cost. And the idea at the time was having one Water Environment Service district would help control ratepayer costs. And I don't know what happened to that. People really wanted to have their own facility, and they wanted their own elected board. And I think that we don't have any, would I mind supporting them? Probably not. I'd be fine with that because they are part of the same watersheds, but there's a scale issue here, I think, that has not been addressed. Anyway.
And it may be that small scale will eventually price them out of what they're trying to do. I don't know. That's not up for us. Commissioner West, and then we're going to move on.
Trent, from a government affairs lens, what is the benefit for the board and to the Clackamas County to jump into this? And if we do nothing, what is the impact of that? I kind of want to weigh both options. We do nothing, we do something, and what does that look like from the scope of the work you do? Or does it not even really matter?
In Salem, relationships matter, and so we have a partner here within Clackamas County that serves 29,000 ratepayers that serve similar water districts and neighboring water districts to West. And so I think Greg provided a pretty good response earlier to what this means, what this project means, and what it looks like for the state to have skin in the games when regulatory issues come along. One of our key priorities within Clackamas County is no unfunded mandates. This gets pretty close to it if it doesn't pass that smell test on the surface. And so being able to support and create precedent for the state to pitch into projects like this, that's good. We can provide a support letter. It's nice when we do that because that means people can provide support letters to us when we start to have big requests or needs for this or other similar projects. So it's just, this is the handshaking relationship that we have with all of our partners as they have needs, as we have needs, to go and build that support. All we would do is to provide a support letter when we're ready that says we support you going after this project and meeting the needs for residents within Clackamas County. We would not advocate directly for this project.
Okay. Are they making application this legislative session?
Yes.
Okay, so when you bring this back with the questions answered, have in hand the support letter to be
Yes.
approved by the board, because I don't want to have to go back a third time.
Sounds good.
And redress this, okay? All right. I assume that, whatever. Gary, is that clear?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming forward.
So, thank you for your feedback.
Up next.
Okay, next item, Oregon Geographic Names Board, request for comment. I'm actually going to let Tony do this one. Tony Marinick, clerk to the board. Go ahead, please.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, for those of you who don't know, despite being almost 250 years old, not every geographic feature in the United States has a name. There is a process that the federal government goes through to decide the name of geographic features to include streams and other waterways. Currently, there is a proposal put forth by the Lake Oswego United Church of Christ to name a stream approximately 1,000 feet in length running along Naus Road in Lake Oswego, Spirit Creek. That proposal is currently in front of the Oregon Geographic Names Board, who are making a recommendation to the United States Board on Geographic Names. Clackamas County is the jurisdiction affected, so we are required to consider whether we wish to comment. I would offer, though, however, support is limited to those property owners currently affected by the creek and the Tryon Creek watershed. No tribes have offered any comment on the name or the potential naming. The city of Lake Oswego has not made any comment on the name, and staff are recommending that this board not make any comments on the proposed name of the creek. However, the Oregon Geographic Names Board is required to ask the affected counties if they would like to make a comment, and so staff are seeking.
So Gary, explain this.
Yes, state law requires that this jurisdiction give an answer to this request. Yes, no, no comment. So we're suggesting no comment, and we just need you to authorize that.
Got it. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so one thing I have noted here in the county, and actually other counties as well, is that in the last few years especially, is that any time when it comes to naming something now, the tribes are very engaged. So if I heard you correctly, there's been no comment, but my question is, has there been thorough engagement of the tribes in this naming process?
Commissioner, my understanding is that the local tribes have been engaged. They have been asked for their comments. They have been asked if they have a comment. The only tribe that has responded are the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and they have specifically responded commenting that they do not have a comment at this time.
They do not have a comment.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scholl?
Well, personally, I like the Lake Oswego United Church of Christ, their recommendation for Spirit Creek. I think it's a good idea, but that's my feeling.
Commissioner West?
If the tribes have no comment, I think Clackamas County should have no comment.
Yeah.
That's where I'm headed. I think we have no comment. To Commissioner Scholl's point, the name is fine, but I think we have no comment. Do we need a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Chair,
yes.
I move that we supply no comment to the geographic naming of, I don't know what you call the creek.
Spirit Creek.
Spirit
But it's
Creek.
not really Spirit Creek yet, right?
Creek in
The
question.
creek, the creek in question, Spirit Creek. Yeah, that was a tortured motion, but that's my motion.
Commissioner Savas?
If I heard, maybe I misunderstood, but if I heard staff correctly, we have the responsibility to
Hear it.
approve it,
No, we can do no comment, just like the tribes
We
have.
have a responsibility to hear it.
or to hear it.
To hear it, yeah.
Okay.
and we can do supply no comment, and I am making the motion because I think we should follow suit with the tribes.
Okay, I'm going to be clear on this motion. I'm going to repeat the motion if I think I have it right. Commissioner West has moved that according to Oregon Geographic Names Board proposal to name Spirit Creek, this Board of County Commissioners will remain neutral. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Savas, your light is still on. Are you okay?
I'm okay.
All right. All right. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Tony, would you please take the poll?
Commissioner Scholl,
No.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-1. Thank you very much.
All right, next, review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, January 11th, 2024. It is an evening business meeting at 6 p.m. You'll have all the consent agenda requests you reviewed today and your other normal course of business, public communication, and so forth. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know prior to Thursday. Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
I will start with Commissioner Savas. Do you have anything for Commissioner Communication?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the event, the fourth hearing that the subcommittee of the Joint Committee on Transportation held in Gladstone on Saturday. A few of us were there on Saturday morning, and it was packed. I don't know what the numbers were, but the newspaper quoted hundreds of people. I didn't do a count, but there were a lot of people, and the line was headed out the door. And I got there half an hour early, and the line was headed out the door for people to get in there. Appreciate Gladstone hosting that, and I appreciate the attendance. And there were more speakers than there was time. You know, I did speak on behalf of the county. I appreciate our colleagues around, our elected colleagues. We all very deliberately made sure we didn't repeat ourselves, so we all took a particular topic and ran with it, and mine was on the safety aspect of it, and Mayor Bully Stosky from West Lynn covered, you know, financial and so on, and Mayor McGriff covered some of the impacts to downtown Oregon City and surrounding areas. But it was very well attended. I think the comments were really good. It was overwhelmingly in opposition, and there were a lot of derogatory comments made. I want to take this opportunity to be perfectly clear, and I've said this before, but I want to amplify it here today. And there's no one in the room, but don't forget that there are a lot of great people that do great work that work at ODOT. ODOT's full of very good people, very skilled people that do good work, and the regular order of business, I am very proud of the work that they do. This particular project is, I can see that's untenable. I can see this very difficult. I wish they would have done more homework before they selected this area, but one of the key comments I made was, which is not quoted in the paper, that's okay. Newspaper article did a great job, and that was, is this the best place or the worst place to begin implementing tolling? And I argue that the lack of transit and the handouts and everything we've learned, that this is probably one of the worst cases or worst places, not a good candidate for tolling. And I think that was one of my points I was trying to make. 4 minutes is not very much time, by the way, and the general public was given 2 minutes, and there was not very much time there either to get that across. But I did submit, you know, some comments and some more material to the state as others did. So with that, I know that next week there'll be another. The fifth one will be the last one. It is exclusively non-metro invitees. So it's about the rest of the state, so I'll be very interested to watch this, and I will continue to update you. And I appreciate all those who spoke. Commissioner Smith spoke as well, and covered the board's position and another viewpoint. So all consistent with our messaging, and that's what I have for today.
Thank you. Yes, I'll comment on that too in my closing. Commissioner Schrader, you were there.
Yes, I was. I thought it was an excellent meeting. I think the public made it very clear that tolling was a no-go as it has been presented. I was recovering from laryngitis, so I let other folks do the talking since I was nothing but a mouse squeak at the time. But I was glad to be there, and I was glad to see our legislative delegation from Salem unanimously, again, state their issues with the tolling project as it has been outlined. I think that will be a very powerful message to the governor, that there are folks on our side here that are seeing this as maybe an unfair and unjust burden on the constituency of Clackamas County. So I thought it was well worth it. Also yesterday, I been down at the Association of Oregon Counties, where we had a pretty robust conversation, both in human resources, but mostly public safety yesterday, and I know that you'll say more of that. I do have an update from NACO, but I'm going to save that for the Thursday evening meeting, if that's okay.
Great.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner West?
I will not be here for the Thursday evening meeting. I will be out, I guess we'll call it medical leave, planned, but I'll try to say what I can today. Spent all day, early morning, all the way into the early evening with NACO. Not NACO, sorry, AOC, Association of Oregon Counties, yesterday on Monday. And I was officially sworn in as our representative for, on the board of directors for a county with more than 250 residents, and so that was an honor. It was interesting because there were a number of steering committees throughout the morning. It started with Health and Human Services early in the morning. That was a robust conversation about how we deal with Measure 110, where AOC is going to stand. We looked at LOC, the Max Williams, different ideas on how to on policy positions to take as an organization. That was a very good, robust, bipartisan conversation, and a lot of people from all over the state in agreement on how to approach that. So that was good. It got sticky when it came to public safety. And I'm sitting there and I'm texting staff here and I need information on this. I need to understand, because we were going to take a pretty critical vote that ended up a lot on. And I think we need to know more about this. I think it's important that this board is clued in on this. It's going to be an issue for us, but specifically, we were debating on whether or not to support the Public Safety Workforce Stabilization Act of 2024. And a lot of the sticking point was, if a county subsidizes the DA, and then the elected DAs being allowed to be a part of PERS, that increased cost to counties. But at the same time, it was very divided. Actually,
50-50.
it was 14-10 out of counties with a quorum that said no, because some of these counties have timber receipts and whatnot, where they are facing 30% loss of their budget, like in Tillamook, and we literally cannot do this. And rural counties struggle with this, but it was really, I won't get into all the arguments, really, I mean, you could fall either way.
Clatsop.
Yeah, Clatsop County. Commissioner Schrader and I fell in support of, and voted in support of it, but it is a little complicated, and then we voted again on another aspect of this, and it was dead tied, so it died in a tie. Right. The only thing that passed was a tabling of this issue. So it was in a lot of robust, good conversation and perspective from across the state. It was great that we were in the room, and it was important that we had two commissioners there at that moment. But that was an interesting conversation that we had that I would think that this board would benefit. We're not done. I believe that understanding the perspective also from our elected DA and the county would be interesting also from DA Wentworth. But yeah, a lot of good work coming out of the AOC, a lot of people working hard. We barely got a 30-minute lunch, and we were right back to it. So I've found that to be beneficial. And I guess moving into this next week, I'll be out Thursday, but I look forward to when I can, if I'm able to Zoom into some of these meetings, and I will leave it at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, thank you. Friday, the AOC Natural Resources Committee met, and we are briefed on 4 items. 1, battery energy storage systems for solar and wind generation sites. 2, wildfire funding. 3, elk depredation fund, and a briefing from the Oregon Water Resources Department. On the battery energy storage system, solar and wind generating sites need to store energy during the day so it can be utilized at night. And this issue added a definition to a battery energy storage system and included language about citing the facilities, and also recommended a change to ORS on local government can defer regulatory authority to the State Energy Facility Siting Council for approval and issuance of a site certificate, and the AOC Steering Committee voted to support that. On wildfire funding, since the 2020 fires, the cost to landowners in Oregon for fire insurance, essentially, with the Oregon Department of Forestry has gone up quite a bit, and it's been typically paid for by a per acre cost to landowners, and then part of it paid for by the state general fund. Senator Elizabeth Steiner from Portland wants to charge every property owner in the state, 2 million property owners, $10 a month to generate $20 million a year to augment the cost of this ODF fire protection to landowners. The AOC Steering Committee said, no, we're not going to support that at this time, and it's got sent back for more information. Then the next item was a briefing on the elk depredation fund concept. And in some parts of the state, elk herds are really causing a lot of crop damage. And so farmers, ranchers have asked the state to look at a elk damage compensation program. So the idea was to do a pilot program, picking one area on the east side of the mountains, one on the west side. And of course, we have a lot of Eastern Oregon ranchers that are involved with AOC, many commissioners, and so the steering committee voted to support that. The last thing that we talked about, we got a briefing from the Oregon Water Resources Department. It was a briefing on the status of groundwater in Oregon. In many parts of the state, the groundwater levels are going down. They talked about the 256,000 wells that are in Oregon, and that 10% of those wells pump 95% of the groundwater used in the state. And particularly, those wells are on ranch lands and farmlands, which is just logical. But there is a concern with the Oregon Water Resources Department that some parts of our state are suffering from lowering groundwater, Klamath Falls Basin, for example. So I bring this up to you because I expect that sometime in the future, Oregon Water Resources Department might make a recommendation to control wells in such a way that they're not currently controlled. Now, I don't know how much impact that will have potentially on Clackamas County, but it could. So that's the wrap-up on the AOC Natural Resources Steering Committee from last Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. All those are really good natural resource issues regarding the fire fund that Senator Steiner wanted to increase. That came about probably in the late 1980s, early 1990s from the Oregon Small Woodlands Association members who created the fire fund themselves, who said we would pay into the fund to protect our forest land. So it came from the taxpayers, people who own timberland, who were willing to pay it for themselves for their own protection. And then all of a sudden, this pendulum has swung to the other side, and it's being used as a punitive tax against these people who established this fund. I find huge irony in that. Regarding water, you mentioned 90% of the wells. Those are all irrigation wells that are using the majority amount of water. People are flocking to our rural areas, for instance, in my neighborhood in South County, to find a piece of land to build a house, and that needs a well. And yes, water tables are falling, and it makes me wonder exactly what's going to happen if some of these wells go dry, as they have in Southern Oregon. And it's the water is a big, big issue.
Yeah, Chair, I think the report said that in the last few years, some 16,000 wells in Southern Oregon have gone dry.
Oh, it's a huge amount. I can't even imagine. That's horrific. Getting back to the hearing on Saturday with the Joint Legislative Subcommittee on Transportation, it's a huge name. I'm sure I butchered it. There was a huge crowd. Paul, I would say there's about 200 people there.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, at least 200 people there, very well attended. I don't think anybody in the room supported tolling except for the gentleman that rode his electric bicycle from Tualatin and said we all could do that. And my hat is off to him. My hat is off to him. Boy, I don't know how that's going to work. But what I appreciated the most on this was the legislators' attentiveness and listening ability to the people on this, and hopefully there will be a solution. I think Senator Frederick did say that this would be addressed in the 2025 session. Did I hear that correctly? I think I heard that. I don't look for anything to be done in our short session coming up, but, I would love to be wrong on that. Mm-hmm. Just saying. But it was, Paul did well, Martha was very supportive, I testified, and then we had a whole host of people, Representative Clackamas County. It was very, very good. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.